It's the all-wheel drive event at Lithia Ford of Boise. From hunting trips to ski trips to trips to Grandma's house. Nobody does AWD like LFB, Lithia Ford of Boise, where Ford begins in Idaho.
Eat Lux your way with the Lux Cravings boxes from Taco Bell. There's the classic $5 box, the indulgent $7 box, and a whole new obsession in the $9 box, the Flamin' Hot Grilled Cheese Burrito. Try the Lux Cravings boxes at Taco Bell today.
Find your sun with Sun Cruiser Vodka Iced Tea. Made with real iced tea and real vodka. Cold, refreshing, and made for moments like these all year long. Let the good times cruise with Sun Cruiser.
As sports fans, we may cheer for different teams, but there's one thing that we can all agree on. We want the game to be big. And with 3 levels, 30 cabanas, a 143-foot screen, 6 clean pools, and endless cold drinks, it doesn't get any bigger or any better than Stadium Swim in Las Vegas. All sports, all seasons. It's more than a pool day. Stadium Swim. It's the only thing like it in the world.
The final buzzer is sounded on another night of Mountain West basketball, and it's time to break down the action with Tom Moser on another night in the Mountain West, presented by Circus Sports. Headed to Las Vegas for the Mountain West tournament in March? Make sure to stay at Circa Las Vegas and watch all the action at Stadium Swim, where the sports are on 365 days a year. Another night in the Mountain West has interviews, analysis, opinions after the final Mountain West basketball game of the day wraps up. All BNN broadcasts come from the Sun Cruiser Studios. Sunny days call for Sun Cruiser Vodka Iced Tea, made with real iced tea and real vodka. It's refreshingly smooth and easy to drink. Crack open a Sun Cruiser and let the good times cruise. The title sponsor of Bronco Nation News is Lithia Ford of Boise. Check out our full inventory of vehicles online at lithiafordboise.com. Lithia Ford of Boise, where Ford begins in Idaho. Did your team just get a big win? Suffer a bad loss? Come discuss it with us. Send us a comment or question in the ICCU YouTube chat, or leave us a voicemail at speakpipe.com/BNN. Now let's go to the Sun Cruiser Studios and join Tom Moser for another night in the Mountain West on Bronco Nation News.
That's right. You're here. Another night in the Mountain West. Saturday night, January the 10th. Full day in the books. Let's be honest, not the most compelling day of action. We had one game that was good action and went down to the wire. The rest, not so much. So what we'll do here is we'll break down the games, then we'll kind of take a big picture look at a lot of the teams, because some things are starting to come into focus now as we've reached the 25% mark, with most teams having 5 games in. I'm your host, Tom Moser. It is another night in the Mountain West. I know BJ just had a roaring show for pretty long, almost 2 hours on the Boise post game. So a lot of talk about that one from really built up over the last 4 days, if we're being honest. So welcome to everybody here watching, however you're watching. Don't forget, we like you to watch, however, but we really want you to watch through the YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribing to it too. We've been on a roll here. We had coaches all week. Tonight, it's just going to be me. Nothing really warranted grabbing coaches. We're not just going to grab them every night. And, we'll save them for big wins, big games, stuff like that. And so I'm just going to go at it myself tonight solo. But still, plenty of stuff to talk about. We welcome your comments, feedback in the chat. Had a few of them already. As always, I will go in reverse order. So I will start with the game that just concluded, which was a San Diego State win by the final of 71-52. And I do have an interesting comment right off the bat here about that game. And the fact that the truth is, I wouldn't say, as we'll see what D-Rax's comment is, Aztecs disrespected the game in the second half. That's a little strong, but multiple players shooting threes that shouldn't be, multiple poor ones taken by players that should. Frustrating watch. So listen, I had similar thoughts. It was difficult for me to stay engaged watching it, especially once it got down to about the 10-minute mark. And then, yeah, they just stopped playing. Now, at least they waited a little bit longer this time than last Saturday, because last Saturday, we all know the deal by now. They had the 20-point lead at the half against Boise, frittered it away, end up going overtime. So they kept their foot on the gas a little bit longer tonight. But the fact is that Fresno had zero chance to win this game once Collins was out, right? I sent out a message, and it's funny that they ended up getting to 52. I sent a tweet out within like 3 minutes of the game after the first two possessions ended up at turnovers, and said that I think they'll be lucky to get to 50 tonight. And really, I wanted to type 45, but things happen and you make some shots. And look, San Diego State was ready to play defense tonight, and Collins is their only playmaker. They have nice players. They have guys that play hard, and you see that. They didn't quit tonight, and they played hard, but they have very little ability to generate offense when Zion Collins is not on the floor. So I'm not sure exactly when he got banged up, but he was in the walking booth. They showed on TV. He tried to go, and it didn't work. So, without him out there, it was always going to be an uphill battle. So what then you see is this becomes about you as San Diego State. You're the better team. You're the more talented team. The other team's shorthanded. You're at home. They had a 29-point lead in the second half with about 13, maybe even 12 or 11 to go, and the lead got down to 13. And you just don't like to see that. So, look, the problem is it's like that's not really a one-off either. It's happened multiple times, or it kind of happens in reverse where they start slow and then they kind of kick it into gear for a few minutes later. And I don't really know which is better, because either way, you're only playing maybe half the game, I guess, right? So just quickly look at the stats here. I mean, they shot the ball poorly. And to D-Rax's point, they took 29 threes and made 6. Like, that's pretty poor. And then one of those was really late too. That didn't even matter, because I remember looking, they were 5 for 27 at one point. They did own the glass, but you would expect them to do that. Their defensive intensity was great. Look at his second chance points there, 23-0. So I mean, that's the physicality and toughness of San Diego State. But I don't know. I think to the point there, you have and Bird, you're going to allow Bird to shoot threes, but Reese Waters 2 for 8 on threes. He did grab 9 rebounds. Heidi taking a 3, Newman 1 for 3. I don't really know that he should be shooting threes. Compton a 3, Simmons a 3, DeGorville 0 for 3. So that again, it kind of speaks to the, I hate to say killer instinct, because they had the game won, but like that's what got them in trouble last Saturday against Boise, right? Like they had the game won, and that they decided to change the way they played. Okay. And that's not the sign of a team that's ready to like contend at the top. I shouldn't say not contend at the top, but win a championship. Okay. We see that they can contend at the top. They went to Nevada and won a very good game against the Wolfpack on Tuesday night. That was a very good win. And so I know some people might say, well, you're nitpicking that they're winning these games by double figures, blah, blah, blah. Like at some point, and it did, again, it almost bit him in the butt last Saturday night, as we all know, right? So yeah, I don't know. Look, this was a game where they were in control from the start. I guess human nature, as I've said before, it's difficult to stay engaged for 40 minutes when you're up by 25. But on the other side of that coin, he played, and I took the stats off, but he played 11 guys double-figure minutes again. So that shouldn't be the case. Each of those guys, all of them, should be busting their butts for more than 11, 12, 13 minutes. Some of the guys that are in that batch of anywhere nightly from 11 to 18, they should be playing the right way. And if one or two of the other guys want to go off script and play a little loosey-goosey because it's a big lead, that will show up on tape, and you show that you're sticking to the script and you want to get more minutes than the minutes that you're getting. And it just doesn't seem that is in their DNA right now. So I don't know if that's a solvable issue or not. One thing that is better, and it's ironic because last night I came on here, and because there was only one game, we did the show last night, and I was just talking about the previews here, and I mentioned about Guath, and I said how I think like moving forward, we have to just take Wath as like a good player, but not an all-league player, because he hasn't shown us that yet this year, right? We all know the deal. He's injured. He hasn't been 100, whatever. And I assumed that Dutch would keep him coming off the bench because it had been a couple games in a row now. Well, Dutch threw him back in the starting lineup tonight, and he played his best game of the season for me. Okay, I don't, let's looking at the stats: 8 for 12 for 18 points and 8 rebounds, 2 for 2 from deep. I mean, he was just more impactful. He looked smooth. And so if indeed this is the beginning of his ascent this year, now that adds another weapon to their arsenal, because as I said last night, he's there. He was always on the roster this year. But to me, he hadn't shown that he was that all-league player. He was like the guy last year. Oh, he's got potential, and some days he'll play well, but some days you're just going to get 4 and 3 out of him because he's young, right? And so tonight may have changed that. Now, you got to factor in the competition a little bit. Fresno's not the most physical team, but it was still a excellent effort for Gwath. Let's see. Anything else on this game here? T Max says, I agree. San Diego State plays too loose, sometimes showboats. They still won by 19. Dutcher will correct them, and they will improve. I will say I've been critical a lot of Bird. I think he's toned it down a slight bit, right? He has, I kind of say this half kidding, not completely kidding, but sort of. Like, he hasn't missed a dunk in a while. Like, he's been known for that. He hasn't gotten a technical in a while. He's earned several of those. And so that is good stuff. But will Dutcher correct it and improve? I don't know. Like, that should have been corrected after last Saturday when they dominated the first half and then laid an egg in the second half and had to scrape and claw in the overtimes to get a win. And that could have completely changed the trajectory of their season if Boise doesn't throw the inbounds pass away, if they foul on the 3, if, okay? So, like, why was that not? Why did a 29-point lead against a shorthanded team in your gym get cut to 13 tonight? Like, why? I don't understand that. We all know it's not like they had walk-ons in the game. He had subs in the game who were more than capable of playing, and probably, in all fairness, no disrespect to Fresno, but the lineup that was on the floor in some of that stretch there is probably more talented than the Fresno starting lineup, okay? So those are things that are worrisome, right? If you are, an Aztec fan, right? I mean, fact, okay? But look, they're 5-0. They are, however they arrived there, they are where we thought they would be in, most people thought they would be when the preseason started, right? I mean, they're headed towards, I guess the guy on TV said not till the end of January for our first Utah State, San Diego State showdown. But clearly now they have ascended to the point where they are not quite at the Utah State level right now, but in that 2-3 slot with New Mexico, who I will get to in a little bit. So let me move to the second to last game, which was, all right. Why do you always hate on the Aztec? Ethan, I don't think I do. I think I'm pretty fair. I call out everybody, right? If you watch and listen to me a lot, I'll call everybody out. I don't pick and choose who I call out, right? I've called pretty much every team and almost every coach out at some point for things that I say, right? I'm not picking on the Aztecs. I mean, I guess in some ways, maybe I'm a perfectionist, right? And I feel like I always want like things to be cleaned up that I think can be cleaned up. And it's, sometimes it's not all positive. I point out the positive and the negative, right? Like, both things can be true. There can be plenty of both. And, I don't hate on the Aztecs anymore. I hate on anybody else. If anybody else was blowing those leads like that, I would say the same thing. Okay. So it's certainly not me hating on them. Wendy asks, what do you think of Compton? Look, I think Compton's a very talented player, clearly. He's, for my money, he's a little too inconsistent. Okay. I mean, what did he show tonight? 4 points, 2 of 3. Now, sometimes that's not necessarily his fault. Okay. Because as one of the earlier comments said, they didn't, Gwath got the ball inside the first 2 possessions in the first half, and then they went away from that for a while. And you could tell in the second half, they were not really interested in running offense, and it kind of became just like, well, we're just going to fire up shots and just kind of get out of here and put it on cruise control. Compton tends to disappear sometimes. Clearly, he's capable of making highlight plays, whether it's a dunk, a block, We saw it last year as a freshman. We've seen it this year in spurts. He's had dominant games. Other times, it's kind of like last year too, right? There were times last year when Guathan touched the ball a lot, and you're like, well, what are they doing? And I think it's the same thing right now where he just gets lost in the shuffle sometimes. You got guards taking a lot of shots, and they don't run a lot of sets for him because he's not a dominant low post player. But he's active, and I like his aggressiveness for sure. Okay, let's move on to the last one here. I'm an Aztec fan. I know we've not seen the best of them. I have seen improvement. I will agree. I totally agree. All right, they're playing better than they were in the non-conference. There's no doubt about it, without a doubt. So I think you got to be happy about that. And yeah, Steinmauer says they are who we thought they were. At this point, it does appear that way, even though we didn't think that for a while. Okay, now let's move on to this one, which was by default, but it was certainly the best game of the day in the conference, and that was Nevada holding off Wyoming 92-83. I think the thing to look at here is, and let me go to the stats on this one, and I want to point something out. One of the stats that gets lost sometimes, it's hard to see. You don't even see it on the screen here. You got to go to the home and visitor stats. Is the where is it? Is the points per possession, right? Nevada's points per possession over here, 1.559. 1.559 points per possession. For context, San Diego State 1.0, okay, in a winning effort when they win by 20. Nevada's 1.559. I went and looked today, so that's points per possession. So when you miss a shot, you're not scoring on that possession. So if you score on one possession and you don't score the next, you're averaging 1 point per possession. That's what San Diego State did today. Nevada, 1.6. That's almost unheard of. And I went and looked at the stats for Florida State, who scored 113 today. NC State drilled Florida State. They scored 113. Their points per possession was like 1.4, high 1.4s. And Nevada 1.56. That's ridiculous. So what that means is there's not a lot of possessions in the game, but they're scoring on almost every possession, which is really hard to do. Okay. I actually thought, if you listened to me last night, I actually thought that would be more of a defensive struggle, and that teams, they would struggle to score points in that game because they weren't great shooting teams. And they shot the crap out of the ball today. Both teams did. Nevada shot 60%, Wyoming over 50%. There were some outstanding individual performances. Camper with 31, a career high. So that's the Camper that Nevada fans have been calling for over the last month when he missed action, and he showed up today. Now, TR did not show up today. If I look at the box score, Rollison, 0 points, 1 minute, and a -1. Now, because there's multiple games going on, and I'm trying to be active on social media and stuff, it's possible that he got banged up. So if he got banged up, somebody in the chat, please let me know. I did not see that anywhere that he got banged up, but he needs. Sorry, I needed to do something there. He was ineffective, and he didn't have a good game on Tuesday against San Diego State either. Just did, Don. I just did. I'm trying to juggle 4 things here, and I just did. So TR not effective at all, and not good. Now, when you get 31 from Camper, that certainly helps. Okay, but you need TR. The reason they won those 2 games last week, the good wins against CSU and Boise, is because they got very good play from Rollison. And if he's not going to be there, not great for them. Price 20 and 13 was a monster. Meyer had 27 for Nevada. So look, Alford even had to go zone. He does not like doing that, but they were having a massive difficulty defending Wyoming's offense. Just like at the start of the game, if you were watching at the start, Sundance, same thing. A lot of movement. We know how Alford's offense runs. They still do a lot of movement, off-ball screening, all of that stuff. And Wyoming had difficulty defending it. Camper got loose early. Sundance calls timeout. They made some adjustments. It didn't massively work, but that's what coaching is. And Alford went to a zone. I didn't stick with it, but he went to it for a few possessions to throw them off track, and it did to an extent because that's where Nevada finally was able to get some separation. This thing was in the 1 to 3 or 4 range for the entirety almost of late first half through the first 12, 14 minutes of the second half until the Wolfpack finally started to stretch it out. And look, really good game. That's one, as I mentioned, Wyoming's got to try to start getting those to make that progression to the next step in his conference. They're not at the top, and that's fine. They're not at the bottom. We all know that. But now you got that muddled middle, as I'll call it, right? The muddled middle. Who's where in the middle here? Okay, there's a handful of teams that, based on the matchup or tonight, look better than others. Wyoming's one of those teams, okay? And they have no shame in the effort tonight. They scored 83 points on a pretty decent defensive team, right? And they just got outplayed by a team that scored at a ridiculous level. Here's a comment. I think TR wasn't healthy tonight. Not sure. Weems back from being sick also helped. So certainly possible that that he wasn't healthy. I'm going to assume, because only 1 minute, unless he's in the doghouse again. And the reason why I didn't rule that out is because we've seen him in the doghouse before. Don says Wyoming's is a true surprise this year. There's no doubt about it. And I had multiple comments earlier before I came on from Nevada fans. We've seen this before from other teams too. Impressed with Wyoming, impressed with Sundance and the job he's doing. He doesn't have 5-star talent, but the guys buy in. He coaches them hard, but he gets results because they know he loves them, and he'll coach them, and he's got their back, and they perform for him. And look, if Nevada had brought a B- game tonight, Wyoming's going to steal that one, okay? Pound for pound, man for man, Nevada's just a little bit better than Wyoming's personnel. And when Wyoming's going to play well like they did tonight, it's going to be hard to beat them at home, okay? And Wyoming, is okay defensively. Nobody's going to confuse them for San Diego State or, a Houston defensively, and that's why they were able to get loose the way they were, okay? Let's see. Okay. So that one, I think, I don't know what else there is much really to say about that. I think, again, those teams are in that middle where, a lot depends on matchups. This was one Wyoming, whatever, but their next game out, home against San Diego State, that's an opportunity again for them too. Sundance going to think that they have a chance to win that game. We know the Aztecs don't like playing there. We talked about that with Jeff Grammer the other night. It's always a sticking point for the Aztecs to go into altitude, especially at Laramie. Haven't made the trip a ton over the last decade plus. They're going to go there on, I believe it's Wednesday night, so we have a real good doubleheader. And it's an early tip, too. It's 8 Eastern because they're going to do a doubleheader earlier for us. Daniel, no, we're going to get to Boise in 2 minutes. So the doubleheader is 8 Eastern and 10 Eastern on Wednesday, and the San Diego State-Wyoming game is the early one, 8 Eastern. So that will be 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. So an early tip there for San Diego State, and that might be a sleepy spot for the Aztecs because they have a massive game coming up then on Saturday in Viejas against the Lobos in what will be like a top 3 showdown in the league. So that is a shot for Wyoming right there. Sundance will have his guys ready to play. It's just kind of a matter of like it was tonight. Can they go toe-to-toe with a team that's probably more talented than them? Well, the Aztecs are more talented. There was no shame in that. But for 40 minutes, can they go toe-to-toe with them? So Sean says TR's having back issues. That explains that then. Okay, well, that makes me feel better. I don't want him back in the doghouse because he's played well lately aside from the other night. So, Nevada can't seem to get everybody healthy at the same time. But it looks like we have Camper back now. And so the rotation's in good shape. So, all right, let's get to the big one. And this one is the one that generated most of the discussion before the game, before the day started. This is this is the game that drew a lot of the attention around the country. And then we had, of course, all the subplots. We have the Leon Rice subplot where, as discussed last night on here, played the sound clip, called out his fans, kind of retracted a little bit because it came off not well. And then he called out his guards, his starting point guards, even though I have a feeling that was mainly directed at Dylan Andrews, but maybe he just wanted to lessen the blow on Andrews a slight bit and include NATO in there as well, because I don't think NATO's been as guilty of poor point guard play as Andrews has been. But he called him out, called the whole team out, really, after their poor effort against Grand Canyon. So what were you going to get? As Coach Calhoun said, we played the clip from BJ's interview with Jared Calhoun last night on here, and Calhoun said, well, we're going to get Boise's best effort. I know BJ and many others thought that you were going to get Boise's best effort. And I said on here last night that I wasn't sure what you were going to get. It was a coin flip for me. Could have gotten their best effort, but it could have went this way also. Okay. And in the fact that, look, Andrews is just going to be like, well, you know what? You're going to call me out. I'll show you. And it is what it is. I'm going to just fire the ball up and fire the ball up and fire the ball up, and I'm not going to play. And if you look at the stats, okay, I think what Leon said the other night, what he was complaining about was that his point guards had 2 assists against Grand Canyon. Well, if you look tonight, Dylan Andrews 0, Bagel, as many as you guys, and Nato 1. So they went from 2 assists against Grand Canyon to 1 assist tonight. So probably not the message received. Now, Andrews also took 13 shots. He took 8 threes, 2 for 8. I mean, he's the leading scorer, but he took 13 shots. Carmichael 3 for 10. Buchanan, I had some people ask me what was up with Buchanan. Like, I didn't know he was banged up, but he was listed on the injury report pregame as questionable. So obviously he was slightly banged up, and with the Broncos in a 20-point hole at the half, maybe Leon just figured we're not going to run him out there if he's only 70%, and so he sat the second half. I mean, clearly Boise's on the ropes right now, right? They sit 9-7 overall, 1-4 in the conference. Now, yes, their 5 games have been far more difficult as a whole than, let's say, San Diego State, Utah State, and New Mexico, who have each got 2 wins against like the bottom 3 teams in the league, really. Okay, you can't dispute that. Each of those 3 teams, while they're very good, they each have 2 wins against the bottom 3 teams. Okay, Boise's played 5 of the top 8 teams, give or take, if you will, probably 5 of the top 8 teams, and I'm including them in there as well as one of the top 8. Don actually says the first comment we got here was that they're in 10th place. And yeah, nobody would have thought they would have been sitting at 1-4, regardless of how difficult the schedule was, because it's just not what you expect out of Boise. But I'm going to say this, right? Like, because I see a lot of people, and I didn't even get to it after this game. This was before the game and after the last game. Leon's lost it. Leon needs to go. It's run its course, this and that. Like, let's think about this here. Let's keep things in perspective. I know that when things are not going well, it's a knee-jerk reaction to want to get rid of the coach. That's how things are in college sports these days. Guys are getting fired after 2 years, sometimes even 1 year, but mostly after 2 years in football and basketball if the results aren't there. And I'm not saying, because we're only 25% of the way into the conference season, but let's make a parallel to Boise with Nevada from last year. And the Pac fans that are in here will probably nod their head along as I'm reading off or giving my thoughts on this comparison. But last year, Nevada picked in the top 3-ish preseason, maybe 2, 3, 4, brought in this guy and this guy and this guy off of 2 straight NCAA tournament appearances. No signs that they were going to go in a tank, played well in the non-con, and then they just went in a tank and it didn't work out. Okay. Does that mean that Alford forgot how to coach? No. Look, they're having a good season this season. Sometimes it's just not your season, and it sucks to have to watch it play out as a fan because you only get so many seasons in your prime or with good whatever, right? But it doesn't mean that Leon forgot how to coach just because Boise's struggling this year. Okay, clearly, and we all knew this before him, but clearly the heart and soul of this program for the last several years was Tyson Degenhart. He's gone. Okay, the leadership void was there. They played well in the non-con, the Hawaii Pacific game notwithstanding, but they played well in the non-con. Just put the final up here. They played well in the non-con, and I'll get to Utah State in a second. Don't worry. But, and it's not going well right now for them, clearly, okay? Doesn't mean that Leon forgot how to coach. It doesn't mean that Leon needs to go. Now, does something need to structurally change within the program fundamentally or what they're focusing on? Well, probably, okay? And that's something that Leon gets paid to figure out and fix then, okay? And that will happen. He's trying. I promise you he's trying. It may be easy to just say, well, they quit, they this, they that, they quit, they don't care anymore. I promise you that's not the case, all right? It's a lot easier said than done. Things aren't going your way. A lot of the credit here has to go to Utah State tonight, because they just came in and absolutely dominated right from the start. Now, there is I don't know what, but there is something to Boise's poor starts. They got off to a flying start 5 weeks ago against St. Mary's in that neutral game, go up 12, 13, nothing, whatever it was. But since then, all of their starts have been poor. Maybe it's something that I don't know what it is, if it's something that they're doing, if it's something that the opponent sees and they jump all over them, but it's happened throughout league play, and it got them again here. They didn't even have the freaking telecast on TV for 30 seconds following the end of the Texas Tech game, and it was 10-0, and Leon was calling timeout. So, I mean, look, that's not the way you want to start a game, to have to climb out of the hole. And they never, I mean, what did they cut it to like 5 or 4, 5, 6 once. But I mean, look, it's difficult when you're doing that. But the credit needs to go to Utah State here, okay? As Don says, Boise played with a lot of energy, but made some mental mistakes. I hope that doesn't mean mental mistakes. Maybe they made some mental mistakes. Maybe they were listening to metal, but I think they made mental mistakes, okay? Yeah, I don't think they came out with no effort, all right? I don't think that they are 100% like bought in to everything that Leon's selling right now as far as a game plan. And that's a huge difference. Utah State is. You can tell. You can tell the teams that are and the teams that aren't. Wyoming is. UNLV is not. Okay? Boise doesn't seem to be right now. Now, that is rare for a Leon Rice team. And that's why the fans are saying, well, he's got to go and it's run its course and blah, blah, blah. It's just sometimes now, if next year comes and the same thing happens, well, then it's a different conversation. But that's what last year with Nevada, I said, well, maybe Alford's he's, getting up there in age. I don't know if he doesn't want to deal with this NIL and portal and all this stuff. How's he going to respond? Well, you see how they're responding. They played very good basketball this season, okay? So it was just a bad mix last year of the roster, and that seems to be the case at this point with Boise. All right, now, let me see if I want to get to Utah, some Utah State talk here, and then I'll finish up with Boise in a little bit, okay? Because the Aggies just dominant. Now, this was one where New Mexico went up a week and a half ago to Boise, and they lost. They lost by 10. Boise completely shut them down and held them to, I think it was 62-53 final, held them to 53 points. Utah State goes up there tonight and scores 93. So, yes, New Mexico, who I'll talk about in a little bit, San Diego State, clearly those three right now are the three best teams in the league. But Utah State has seemed to separate themselves, and there's no way around it. Like, you can't argue with that. As good as San Diego State looks now, getting it together, as well as New Mexico is playing, and I love the way they're playing, Utah State just has another gear. They have another gear, okay? They just have more options. They've had it all year. Jordan says, credit to the Spectrum on wheels. That was a return to the WAC days, legit. What Boise fans do at Maverick Stadium. Glad we both have. So yeah, that was a big issue there where the Aggie student section kind of traveled and had more students than the Boise student section. So that's not a great look for Boise. Not sure that the fans responded the way that Leon hoped they would. I don't think that had any impact on the game. I think it all just ties in together. Like there's, one of the comments I had on social media was like, they just look dejected, and they do. Sometimes you just know, like it's not going your way. It's not your night. It's not your week. It's not your month. It's not your season. And it's not going very well for Boise right now. On the other side of the coin, Utah State just clicking on all cylinders. We're only 25% of the way into the conference season. I keep saying that, but MJ Collins has kind of separated himself as the player of the year right now. A lot of games left, clearly, but he is at the top of the list. He is absurdly good, okay? It's no reason or it's not difficult to figure out why maybe he, as good as he is, why he couldn't get minutes at Vanderbilt or wanted to leave Vanderbilt. They are undefeated. Vanderbilt, they're 16-0. They're one of the last 5 undefeated teams in the country. So it's not like you can say, well, he couldn't get on the floor at Vanderbilt. He played last year. They played against Nevada in the tournament in Charleston or wherever it was. We watched him play last year. He had ability. He just came here and I'm sure Calhoun's thrilled and Aggie Nation is thrilled that he's there. So pretty go Aggies. Awesome how hard the Aggies are playing, even up big. And see, so that's the difference to the comment earlier about the San Diego State game, right? I know this was a rivalry and the teams don't like each other. The schools don't like each other. The fans don't like each other. All that dynamic between Boise and Utah State, right? But think about what I talked about 10 minutes ago with San Diego State, how they get up by 25 and they go through the motions the last 10 minutes, and you converse that with what Utah State did in the last 5 minutes or whatever, with a similar group of players on the floor. Not really the hammers, but a good group of players against Boise, whose players on the floor at that point were probably better than what Fresno had on the floor. And Utah State continued to just run and score and play hard. So I think there's something to that, right? It's a mindset. It's in the attitude. It must be stressed by the staff. Keep your foot down on the gas, right? So I think, like, a lot to like here about Utah State. I already put that comment on there about the hangover or the takeover in Boise tonight. Yeah, clearly Utah State, 4-hour drive. I think I looked it up. You guys know better than me, but about 4 hours. Impressive to do that. And I would travel to watch this team play too, because they're pretty unique. Their metrics are going to continue to skyrocket after this. I mean, right now it's a quad one. We will see. As Don pointed out earlier, Boise sits in 10th and 1-4. Now the schedule will lighten up a little bit, but I'll tell you what, super interesting game. As Jordan says, my biggest flop of the year has been on NATO, because earlier in the year I said that let's cool off on NATO because I wasn't sure about him. He clearly has a lot of talent. Steve, Boise didn't show up. I think a lot of that had to do with Utah State, but NATO certainly improving as the season goes on here. This one, as Varg says, based on the last two games, seems like Leon's lost the team. I mean, that's a common refrain, and we're going to find that out on Tuesday, okay? Because we have on Tuesday night the two most disappointing teams in the league, Boise at UNLV. So who's going to blink and who's going to take that one by the horns and get a victory there? It's at UNLV, but that doesn't mean anything because we know they don't have a home court advantage, right? So if Boise still has a pulse, I would expect them to go in to the Thomas and Mack and win that game. They need Buchanan healthy, quick turnaround, right? But that's a game that you have to win. Like UNLV, I heard from some of their fans today, they think they might win 2 or 3 games the rest of the year. But if you're a UNLV fan, you're going to, or a coach or player, you're going to expect to be able to win this game. So I don't know. I think that will they show up, right? Because it's easy now at 1-4. Your at-large hopes are completely doomed. So your season comes down to basically maybe 4 days, because you're not going to be a top 4 seed at this point, but 4 days in early March. Can you put 4 games together? Don't know if they will. But what do you want to play for? Because, look, they made it to the Crown last year. They played in the NCAA tournament 3 years in a row before that. I mean, with an NCAA tournament berth, at-large berth out of reach, what are your goals right now, right? What are your goals? And especially for a guy like Dylan Andrews, I hate to keep singling Andrews out, right? But as a guy who's on his last year, who came here, took a paycheck, came here to win and be part of a winning team that's not winning then, that's why it's like I kind of drew the parallel to Nevada from last year, where Kobe Sanders and those guys came over to win, and it didn't work. And then they just played 500 basketball the rest of the year. So I just don't know. Daniel says Degenhart was the rock of Boise's program. Whenever the game was rough, he was the guy looked to 100%, 100%. And you would have hoped that was kind of solved with some portal pieces, but apparently not at this point. So again, look, they played a very tough schedule, but there's no arguing that there's one thing. Had they lost the GCU and Utah State games by 4 and 6, like they lost the San Diego State game, we wouldn't be having a conversation the way it is right now, okay? The fact is they got run off their own floor in both of those games. No matter how good Utah State is, they were never competitive in this game, and it's just not a good look. So you have to question those things when that happens, okay? Utah State's a very good team, as Don says, played lights out. Yeah, they shot the crap out of the ball from downtown. I took the stats off right away, but they made 11 out of 25 from deep. That's 44%. I think every team would take that every night out. And so Utah State has strong starts. Do the Aggies have the player of the year, the defensive player of the year, and the freshman of the year all in one team? That's an interesting thought. The freshman of the year, man, who's better right now? Who, as an Aggie fan, Perryman or Elamine? They're both very good. But, I mean, Bouillon, Jake Hall, Nazmeyer, for a conference that I've said for the last few years, we don't really have a ton of really good freshmen. Like obviously Toppin was an outlier, but man, like look at all the good freshmen we have right now. I mean, Harrington is playing good basketball for San Diego State. There's a lot of good freshmen, and I'm sure I'm even forgetting one or two because I just am thinking of who's on the top of my mind right now. So, man, like there's a lot of good. I don't know how they're going to pick a freshman of the year or even a first team. Okay, so I guess all right. So Utah State class of the conference right now at the quarter pole. We'll see how they match up. They have a big one against Nevada. I guess it's the Wednesday night late game. And so we'll see how that goes. But, I mean, you know that they'll be fired up at the Spectrum for that one. If they can travel up to Boise here, they'll certainly pack the Spectrum for that one. How's Nevada going to travel just off the 2 home games in a row? So Falslev MVP of the league. No, I wouldn't say Falslev, Don. It's got to be MJ Collins. Falslev does more of the little stuff as he did last year. I was a big fan of that because he does a lot, loose balls, steals on the floor. Maybe not, he gets assists, but also like secondary assists, okay? And yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, it's hard to argue with the way that Collins is playing right now. Okay. So we got those 3 in. Let me go to this one here. The first game of the night. We had one earlier in the day. The first game of the night was this one here. Grand Canyon 76-58 over San Jose State. I did not even know. I mean, look, let's be honest. The reporting for San Jose State is not nearly what you get from BJ at Boise or Chris Murray or certainly Jeff Grammer or some of the other guys in our league that get information out there really quickly on their teams, okay? And there's a reason for that. I mean, there's not a market for it like there is in some of those other schools. But I saw the injury report update in the afternoon, and San Jose State was missing like half of their team. So I don't know what happens over there, that it always seems to be the case for Miles and his guys. But, man, like they're missing Garland. They're missing Washington, 2 of their best 3 guards probably, okay? They were also missing Maundi inside. And last night when I did this, I said if they don't have Maundi, they're going to struggle. Well, not only did they not have him, they didn't have Washington or Garland either. So, like, it's just he's Miles and his program there. They have enough trouble staying in games and being competitive against good teams when they're fully healthy. And now you're going to, so they're already playing like with one hand behind their back because they don't have any NIL money. And the top teams at the top league do. Now it's like you're closing one eye and playing with one hand behind your back because now you're taking half his lineup out. So, I mean, look, GCU should have done what they did here. Let's look at some of the numbers briefly in this one. 19 for 52 for the Spartans, not good enough. Grand Canyon took 33s on 57 out of 57 shots. That's too many. They're not a good shooting team. They made 30% of them, and over half of their shots are threes. That's too many. Maybe again, and I stopped focusing on the second half of this because that took place when the Utah State game and Boise came on. Looking at the numbers there, Stromer made a few. He made 4 out of 6 from 3, which is a good sign for Grand Canyon because he has not shot the ball well. Brian Moore, 3 for 5, 1 for 3, 7 points, 20 minutes. He has not played well. I mentioned that before. Caleb Shaw has played well. He was 2 for 10 tonight, not super. Demeril, 5 for 7, 6 boards. Owusu Anane, 7 and 11. So you'll take that from him, certainly. And look, here's the thing about Grand Canyon, okay, as again, a 76-58 final. They were easy to knock after they got drilled last Saturday by CSU, and they didn't play good in a non-con. There's no doubt about it. Now, from hearing from a little bit from Lopes fans, that's been a constant with Drew a little bit, is that they have not played super in the non-con, and then they've geared it up in WAC play. Now, the difference is they likely knew that they did have a much easier path to the tournament through the WAC conference tournament than they do the Mountain West conference tournament here, right? Like if they think that they're just going to like gear it up for that conference tournament and, just play a little bit harder and they're going to win it, well, they got another thing coming, right? I mean, they're going to have to win 3 games against 3 good teams, regardless of what seed they are, 4, 5, 3, 6. They're going to have to beat 3 good teams to win the conference tournament, okay? Can they do it? Probably. Can they do it 3 nights back-to-back? I don't know. But I will say this. They are playing better basketball now, okay? And it's not just because of the opponent tonight, because they beat a shorthanded San Jose State team by 18. They're playing good basketball. They've won at two difficult places to play, at Wyoming and at Boise, not necessarily just because of the arena and stuff, but the road trips and everything that comes with it. All right. They're not used to doing this stuff in this conference. Okay. So you got to give them credit for that. They took care of business tonight, and they have a big game coming up against New Mexico. They've traveled well this year. In the pit, maybe a little bit of culture shock for them, but look, they'll come out with in confident in that game the way that they're playing. So who knows? Maybe Drew's cooking something up there. If they can, Henley, I didn't even mention him yet. He's played at a very high level. Okay. I don't know if we'll consider him like an all conference first teamer, depending on how many guys deep you want to go in that list. But, second team for sure. He's actually played at a pretty high level. I wasn't super fond of him last year when he played for UNLV. It's kind of funny. I hate to say it because I did earlier say that I will call everybody out and I don't have any biases for or against, but I do think, especially under Kruger, that I tended to look more negatively at UNLV players because I wasn't very fond of Henley last year. And now this year, he's impressed me a little bit because when they got him, I was like, well, maybe a little bit. He's got some talent, but I don't know if he's a winning player. He's played well this year. There's no doubt about it. And they have some other pieces. If they can get more straightened out, Stromer can start making shots consistently. They will be a pain in the butt because they play defense. And that travels. I think whether it was Calhoun or Leon, somebody said that the other day. We all know defense travels. They play defense. Their defense will travel to the pit on Tuesday. And, that could be a very competitive game. So I'm interested to see what happens in that one. But they're a team I would not want to sleep on, right? I think everybody kind of sold them out and forgot about them because they didn't perform well again in November, December. They lost that game against CSU at home when CSU was 0-2. Had they won that game, they'd be sitting at 4-0 in the conference right now. Now, they have not, again, played the most difficult slate. They haven't played San Diego State yet. They haven't played New Mexico yet. Obviously, they haven't played Utah State yet. But they're 3-1, and you play who's in front of you. And you would have told Drew and the Lopes fans that they'd be 3-1 at this point in the conference. You would have signed up and said, I'll take that without a doubt. So credit to Drew and his guys. They sit 3-1. And, interesting one again Tuesday in the pit. Now, speaking of the pit, I don't have the stats, and I'm not going to put them up there. I will put the final up just briefly here, 91-49. And as I tweeted out, really, the less said about this one, the better. Because, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even watch the last 15 minutes. I watched the first half because it was the only thing on. And New Mexico, it was like watching a varsity game against a varsity team against a JV team. Now, I mean, we all know the deal with Air Force. It's only going to get more difficult as the rules are the way they are right now in college sports, okay, especially in basketball. Somebody asked me about Joe Scott. This is, yes, Larry, we definitely love Air Force. And it's unfortunate because, we love the Air Force Academy, okay? As far as Air Force basketball goes, it's probably the hardest job in the country, okay? Now, people might be like, what are you talking about? When you consider everything, the competition that you face and what your resources are, I don't know how you can say that there's any harder jobs because they cannot take transfers. They do not deal with NIL. They lose transfers, and they can't recruit guys of certain height and all that stuff. Now, Army and Navy, you're going to say, well, they have the same thing. Sure they do. Same with the Citadel, and I'm sure VMI or whoever else, Virginia Military Institute, there's other schools as well. Guess what? Those schools play in low major leagues, where NIL is probably like a cheeseburger and a tank of gas, okay? Maybe like a month subscription to Wawa or something. I don't know. But they play in low major leagues, all right, where there's no NIL and there's no competition for it. So you can survive a little bit more there. Navy's having a very good year in the Patriot League. That's my home neck of the woods, the Patriot League. Those schools don't have any NIL, all right? So Navy's not at much of a disadvantage as Air Force is. Not even close. When you look at some of the budgets in our league, and of course, they're nowhere close to the budgets in the SEC and the Big Ten. We all know that. but compared to what Air Force is, like your budget and my budget is the same as what Air Force's is. So like it's as difficult a job as there is in the country. Joe Scott knows what he's doing. He took this team to the NCAA tournament, for crying out loud, 20 years ago at Air Force, right? Now, the game has changed so much since then, and I feel bad for Joe Scott, okay? There's just nothing you can do about it. Now, as for New Mexico, much credit to them for showing up and taking care of business. 45-22 at the half. I watched the first few minutes to make sure that it didn't creep down to like 15 and, it got up to 35 or whatever, and I shut it off because there wasn't much to gain from it. And so I'm not even going to put the stats up. But what I will say is from what I watched, and again, the talent disparity is massive, but New Mexico is executing at an incredibly high level. And I'm going to draw this comparison because it's a hot button thing right now in the news, right? Is Olin reminds me of like Kurt Signetti, okay? And I know I'm sure we got some football stuff, football fans in here right now. Jeff, appreciate it. Good stuff as always. I appreciate it, Jeff. I'm sure we have some football fans in here, right? I don't watch it like I used to, but I am old enough to know that from the 70s through 2 years ago, Indiana was probably one of the 3, 4, 5 worst Power 5 schools in the country in college football, okay? Hands down, right? And now they're going to win a national championship in 7, 8 days, whatever it is, okay? And how does that happen? Well, that's because Kurt Signetti is a fantastic football coach, as everybody has come to figure out. Okay, and Olin to me is similar to Signetti. So here's the thing with coaching, right? Everybody's got a game plan. Everybody's got ideas of what they want to do, what their philosophy is, what their strengths are, how they adjust, all that stuff, right? Now, these are unofficial. These are my breakdowns of it. But let's just say there's 365 Division I teams right now, okay, in hoops. I've moved back away from the football into hoops. But there's 365 teams. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that there's, and I know fans would say that there's a lot more, but let's just say that there's like 20 to 25% of the coaches are not very good, right? They're just average. They're not bad coaches. They didn't get to this place by being bad coaches, okay? But they're not very good coaches, okay? So that cuts a quarter of them out. Then you have a quarter where you know what you're doing, but you don't have the roster to accomplish what you're doing. And that might be the situation with Boise State this year, right? So that cuts another quarter out. Then you have another large portion where you know what you're doing and your players are bought in, but maybe you don't have the talent that your opponent has on a given night, like Wyoming tonight, like a lot of teams. Because guess what? The other team is trying too. They have a game plan too. They have a good coach too. They have a good roster, and they're trying too. Then every once in a while, you get a guy like Eric Olin and Kurt Signetti that it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter what your opponent does. It works. Because you are just that good at scheming stuff up. In football, it might be calling a play. It might be calling a defensive scheme. It might be calling whatever. In basketball, it's just getting the right game plan defensively, getting your guys to execute it. It's getting mismatches on offense and subbing the right guys in at the right time. And it just works. And that's what Olin is right now. It just works. I'm sure we all know he came from UCSD. He worked them up for Division II. I'm sure most of us in here right now didn't watch more than 3 or 4 games of theirs last year because none of them were on TV except for maybe 1 or 2 games against UC Irvine. I do remember watching one against Irvine, and then, of course, their NCAA tournament game against Michigan when they came that close to winning the game, okay, when they had far less talent than Michigan, right? So clearly he's done it. And now he's doing it at New Mexico, okay? I still don't think he is top-end talent. He's got good players, but the Lobo Nation themselves said 2 months ago, this roster's division whatever, right? It's not Mountain West caliber roster. Well, I don't think that changed overnight, right? Boyan's a very good player. Hall is a good player, but, are you going to call Hall an elite, 5-star Division I, bit power 4 player? I don't know. Not right now. You're not. Okay. So it's because of Olin and what he schemes up. Doesn't mean he's perfect. He's not immune to having a night where it doesn't work for him. But man, do they get what they want on both sides of the floor? And that's a testament. That's a testament to his coaching. And as long as that is in play, like, they are going to be a tough out. They're going to be a tough out. They're going to be a tough out wherever they go, on the road, against good teams. It really doesn't matter. Okay. And I think you should be thrilled, if you're a Lobo fan, that you are where you are right now. Okay. I mean, I've seen a lot of stuff now, and I've started to worry myself over the last week or two as Nevada took that loss to San Diego State, as CSU's taken a few losses, as Boise obviously has fallen off the grid here, that we're pretty much down to right now 3 teams with the potential to get an at-large bid. I would say beyond Utah State, San Diego State, and New Mexico, there's probably 10 to 15% max that anybody else has a shot. And you'd have to go on a completely ridiculous run over the next 8 weeks for that to be accomplished. Okay. But otherwise, it's just down to those 3 teams. And that's not a given either, right? I mean, all they got to do is drop. San Diego State's got to drop the Wyoming game. New Mexico drops the Grand Canyon game. All it takes is, these teams have to play near perfect, not in terms of winning every game, but in terms of not having any more bad losses, getting enough good wins. How the bubble goes for other teams around the country, we'll get more focus on that moving forward here. But it looks like we're going to be stretching it to get 3 bids at this point, And again, that's not I don't really worry about that. I don't really care. I want 3 teams. I want 4, whatever. But I want to watch good games over the next 2 months, and we have 3 really good teams. Nevada's right there. That's Grand Canyon and Wyoming and CSU are right underneath there too. So that's over half the league that's capable of being right near the top. Okay, if they continue to play that way. But I wanted to point that out about Olin right there. And Don says, Olin, why can't Boise hire a coach like Olin? Well, I mean, listen, I will say, Don, that and longtime Boise fans will say, before Leon got there wasn't much to shake about for this program, okay? And so he might be struggling right now. And yes, I know ultimately they have not won an NCAA tournament game. And if clearly it doesn't look like they're going to get there this year, and maybe their best years have run their course, we'll see what happens when they move into the new pack next year. We'll have to see. Nobody knows how much longer Leon sticks it out. And if he never gets an NCAA tournament win, certainly that will be a mark against his resume. But the way the program was before he got there, it's hard to argue that he did anything but work wonders for that program. Now, things get stale a lot sometimes, just like food, okay? And I don't know, right? I'm not saying it's time for them to make a change, but there was a time when I think Boise fans thought this guy's great. And I mean, maybe it's just not working with this group. So I don't know what else to say about that. So listen, it's after 2 a.m. here on the East Coast. I've gone for almost an hour with no interviews. Again, talked about that at the top. Didn't, have the need to bring anybody on tonight. We did that a lot this week and had a lot of great stuff going on. I do want to thank the sponsor, as I do every night, Sun Cruiser. Okay, go out and get yours. Great tasting. They have lots of different flavors. This one happens to be iced tea and vodka. So go get your Sun Cruiser. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right. All it does is cost you a click. It doesn't cost you anything else. Okay. Nothing. 0 cents. Thank you, Don. You're welcome. I appreciate it. So go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tuesday, the 4 games, Wednesday, 2 games. So I know for a fact with the doubleheader Wednesday, I'll be back Wednesday with another night in the Mountain West. As for Tuesday, got to talk to BJ about that because the late game is the Boise UNLV game. And so we're going to have to talk about what we're going to do for that one. We'll be here in some manner or fashion because it's a 4-game night. And so, look, that's how it's going to be moving forward here. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, just about every week out. Got to keep checking on those schedules, but I think that's the way it goes. So go subscribe in the YouTube. Spread the word. It's growing here. That's what it's all about. I appreciate you guys coming in. I do have one more that I want to put on that I don't think I put that one on before that. Don said Utah State should be top 25 tomorrow. They might not vote until Monday morning. They probably should be top 25. I mean, we all know that they don't like to vote the mid-majors in. They probably deserve it at this point. I mean, I'm not a guy that puts a lot of stock in the margin sometimes because I just want to get wins. But the way that they dismantled CSU and on the road here at Boise, that's pretty darn impressive to have only one loss. Yes, their schedule has not been the most daunting, but they deserve to be in the top 25. But look, if they don't get in there, that's fine. They'll just use it as motivation and they'll keep coming out and playing. You got to like what you see from them. You got to like what you see from New Mexico, with the exception of kind of, taking their foot off the gas late. You have to like the way that San Diego State's trending up too. Nevada with a nice bounce back win. Can't be disappointed if you're Wyoming. And I like the way that Grand Canyon is trending up too. So a lot to like about what's going on here. Keep coming back to check us out. I'm sure we'll get some guests and things like that going on next week, probably Tuesday and or Wednesday. For now, I'm going to shut it down. Appreciate you guys all being here, and I'll catch you next time on another night in the Mountain West.